Hello, and welcome to Knights of the Nerds Table. I'm your host, Dieter, and today I want to make sure that you, yes you, know everything you need to know to be ready when She-Hulk Attorney at Law hits Disney Plus on August 17th. Now, some of you probably saw our Thor Love and Thunder video. What was that? 6.8 thousand people saw that video? Well, okay, thanks for watching. In that video, we covered Thor's history up until that point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But with a show made up of largely brand new characters to the MCU, we're gonna have to look at things a little differently. So like, subscribe, check out our socials, and then let's see how we got to this point in the MCU, and then take a little look at the source material to see what that shows us about what to expect from this brand new entry to Marvel's multiverse saga. We know that She-Hulk will be made up of 9 30-minute episodes taking place in Phase 4 of the MCU. The show will follow Jennifer Walters, played by the superlatively talented Tatiana Maslany. Jen is a defense attorney and cousin of Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and we know that somehow she will end up contaminated with Bruce's blood and become a Hulk in her own right. For MCU fans, this show may finally shed some light on what's been going on with Bruce since Avengers Endgame. Bruce exists in a weird space in the MCU. Due to complicated rights issues, Hulk seemingly can't appear in his own self-titled movie, so Hulk has to be relegated to being a secondary character in other films. As a result, a lot of his recent character development in films has occurred in between movies, and unfortunately, in my opinion, has been a bit glossed over. But here's what we do know about the Jade Giant's history within the MCU. Bruce first appeared in the MCU as the star of 2008's The Incredible Hulk, which starred Edward Norton in the role. The movie introduces us to the basics of Bruce Banner's story. He's a scientist specializing in gamma radiation who, after an accident, developed the ability to transform into an inhumanly strong, unkillable, green representation of his own repressed rage. The movie follows Bruce as he attempts to escape the clutches of the US military while seeking a cure for his condition. Subjectively, the film is good, but ultimately forgettable. But what is important is that it introduces Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination, who we do know is going to appear in She-Hulk. Blonsky is an ex-Special Forces operative who utilized a combination of super soldier serum and Hulk's own irradiated blood to become an even bigger monster than the Hulk. After his own film, Bruce remained on the run, helping people however he could. He reappeared in Avengers, where he learned to direct the Hulk's rage against alien threats like the Chitauri, and eventually also reappeared in Avengers Age of Ultron, helping the Avengers fight Hydra. In between, he briefly appeared as Tony Stark's unwilling therapist in Iron Man 3. The main developments during this era occur in Avengers Age of Ultron, where after Scarlet Witch manipulates the Hulk into attacking Johannesburg, South Africa, Hulk leaves the Avengers and flies off into the wilderness in a Quinjet, not to be seen again until Thor Ragnarok, where Thor discovers that Hulk had been swept through a wormhole and become the champion of the Grandmaster's Arena on the planet Sakaar. Thor recruits Hulk in his battle against his sister Hela, but not before staging a tiny revolution on Sakaar. After the destruction of Asgard at the hands of Hela and Surtur, Banner remained with Thor until the Asgardian refugees were attacked by Thanos' forces. In the ensuing battle, Hulk was thoroughly trounced by Thanos, and Banner was sent to Earth to warn of Thanos' coming. During this period of time, Hulk, due to a combination of wounded pride and a desire to not be used as a weapon by Bruce, refuses to join the battle against Thanos' forces, forcing Bruce to learn how to use one of Tony Stark's Hulkbuster armors on the fly. Bruce was a survivor of Thanos' snap that wiped out half the universe, and in the intervening 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame, came to terms with the Hulk, merging their personalities into Hulk's body and becoming Professor Hulk. The Professor would go on to be integral to the Avengers' attempt to reverse the snap, using the Infinity Stones to bring back everyone who was turned to ash 5 years previous at the cost of his own arm. Since then, we've only caught a few glimpses into Banner's status, with him appearing alongside Captain Marvel to invite Shang-Chi to join the Avengers. This appearance left MCU aficionados with plenty of questions, as Bruce was back in his human form, but his arm was seemingly still heavily heavily damaged. Meanwhile, in the same movie, we also saw that Emil Blonsky had formed a working relationship with the current Sorcerer Supreme, Wong, and they had been throwing fights at an underground superhuman fight club to make lots of cash. And that's pretty much all we know from the MCU going into She-Hulk, which tells us absolutely nothing about our main character, Jennifer Walters. But what can the comics teach us? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, I love She-Hulk. She is one of my favorite characters in the entire Marvel Universe, and I am so very excited to tell you a little bit about what I think we can expect. In the comics, we are introduced to She-Hulk in the pages of The Savage She-Hulk, issued in 1980. This She-Hulk is, once again, Jennifer Walters, Bruce Banner's cousin and defense attorney, who was given a blood transfusion from her cousin after a near-fatal shooting outside of a courthouse. She-Hulk started much the same as her cousin, demure in human form, but with anger causing her to become a monster. It wasn't long, though, before a subtle but very important difference between these two Hulks began to appear. You see, both Hulks are representations of their counterparts' id, their basest, most passionate instincts. For Bruce Banner, the id is something to be feared, something that he fights and tries to repress. As a result, his Hulk is a dangerous, rampaging monster. Unlike Bruce, Jen loves being She-Hulk. She enjoys the feeling of power and freedom and confidence that her Hulk form affords her. And it wasn't long before she ended up choosing to stay in Hulk form full time. Because she embraces her inner id in this way, She-Hulk is much more intelligent, compassionate, and kind, while still being able to lift a 3-story building without a sweat. She-Hulk is also much more of a team player. It wasn't long after her introduction that she ended up joining the Avengers and has been a mainstay of the team ever since. She was also a temporary replacement member on the Fantastic Four, taking over for Ben Grimm, the Thing, after Thing took a leave of absence in the remnants of the Beyonders' Battle World. There's honestly so much more to say about Jen's history in the Marvel Universe, from her career at the law firm of Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, to her role as Marvel's first fourth wall breaker, to her rocky relationship with the Time Variance Authority, last seen in MCU's Loki, to her complicated reputation as a sex-positive character that has spent most of her existence being written by men. But it's looking like any and all of those topics are going to be fair game in She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and I don't want to give too much away. So I had an idea. This video is already running a little long, so let's just stop here for the moment. We'll all watch the first episode or two of She-Hulk, and I'll be back here later this month for a special Dieter Knows segment all about the sensational She-Hulk. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor and drop a comment letting me know how excited you are for She-Hulk, and we'll see you here next week with more conversations around the Nerds Table.